Hello Seekers, today is Friday, the 12th of June 2020, and I would like to talk to you about what's going on inside you while all this havoc is playing around us, which we may or may not fully understand. We can recognize that what is visible on the outside is the manifestation of what's happening on the inside. And we can see clearly manifesting the internal struggle that is going on in each one of us, the struggle for evolution. We are like caterpillars who, after having lived a big portion of their time crawling on the ground, looking for light and food and shelter from predators, in a hostile environment, moving slowly and with difficulty, we can feel that now is the time to change. Now is the time to transform into something more free, more beautiful, and to live our true essence of free beings, of multicolor, flying from flower to flower, to express who we are, enjoy life, and convey life. So why what we see around us is so different to our understanding of what it should be? It's essentially that our understanding of what it is flawed and is colored and affected by our belief of how it should be, and our ignorance that what's going on in our soul, in our mind, and what we speak out and what we do today dictates the reality of tomorrow. So what we see today as the reality is simply the manifestation of our state of being, our state of mind, our thoughts, our words spoken, our physical actions, the actions of our hands and feet, collectively and individually, over the past few minutes, hours, days, years, and lives. So, if you don't like what you see around you, it's simply that you don't like what was going on inside you a few days, a few weeks, a few months, sometime lives ago. We can change, and we can change the world. And the only way we can change the world is by changing who we are. And the only way we can change who we are is, first of all, by recognizing who we are not. Too many people are confused. They think they are white, black, colored. They think they are American, French, Nigerian, Spanish. They think they are Catholic, Protestant, evangelical, Muslim, Buddhist. They think they are conservative, Democrat, progressive, Tories. All these are just words to define not something that is real, but a concept, an idea of a theoretical group of homogeneous people. There is no such thing. We are about 8 billion people on this planet. Not two are equal, not two are identical. But yes, all of us, we have the same essence and we have the same value. But we are inherently different. Each one of us is a completely unique potential, a unique person by potential. We are simply one frequency and one point of view on the vibrations of this universe. And even our two own eyes have a slightly different point of view on what we look at. Our two brains, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, have a different point of view on what our two eyes are telling them. So naturally, anytime we make the mistake of thinking that we should all agree on something, we should all behave in a certain way, we will be wrong, because each one of us is on Earth precisely to give the universe a different perspective on itself. But also, each time that we believe that we are different and unreconcilable, that we have unreconcilable differences, we are also wrong, because we are all essentially a manifestation of the entire universe, of God, if you like. So are we all the same? Yes, no. Are we all different? Yes, no. We are all together capable of seeing a different facet of the truth of what is, of all that is. Partially, if we limit ourselves to analyzing and observing a small portion of reality, and a bigger and bigger contribution we can make if we expand our consciousness to encompass as much as we can of our experience, our multidimensional, extraordinary experience. Each one of us has an extraordinarily adventurous life. Whether we are stuck in one room for years, or if we travel the world and fight wars, the truth is all lives are an incredible adventure, incredibly rich of experiences, sensations, feelings, emotions, thoughts, experiences. And we can try and convince others that our experiences or our point of view has a higher value than the other, or that our very being has more value than any other one. But it's clearly not the opinion of the universe, or if you want to call it God. The universe had the choice to bring to life or not any one of us. And whether you think it's random or not, in the end, if a consciousness exists, it deserves to exist. The very fact of existing is worthiness. Worthiness of the point of view, worthiness of the expression of the point of view, worthiness of the very being. Judgment, whether one being is good or bad, higher or lower, makes no sense. It's purely a play on concepts. There is no question when you look at a butterfly or a tree or a flower, you don't say, oh no, this one is good and this one is bad. This one is a mediocre tree. It's not treeing very well. It's completely absurd. Or this tree is inferior to that tree because of the number of leaves it has or because of the color of its leaves. No, as it said in the Bible, you don't judge a tree by any other thing than its fruits. The good tree is the tree that produces fruits. So if really you want to judge, because there is an inherent tendency of human beings to try and judge themselves and others, then if you do, judge people by their fruits, by their actions, and by the quality of radiance and happiness and joy and health of their children, their ventures, their artistic production, anything that you can call a fruit born out of that being. And definitely, yes, the skin is not one of them. You cannot say the bark of the tree is a fruit. It's not, right? The fruit is something that nourishes and that bears seeds that can produce something else. Not two trees are identical. Now, what's going on the planet right now is a fantastic opportunity. Some people can call it the end of time tribulations. Some people can call it the beginnings of the World War III. Some people can call it anything. But what it is really is just that we are shaking a bit. We are shaking the pulp of this juice of life. We have been stale. We have been just lying there trying to survive for too many years, too many centuries, millennia. It's time to shake the pulp and see if we still have some fruit and some juice left in us, and if we can give taste to life again. If you look at it, there is indeed a world war going on, but it's not a war between any group of people. It's the war within you, between all the parts of you that are shattered, that are unreconciled. So let's look at them quickly. Each human being is a multidimensional human being that really, even in my deepest meditation, I've not been able to go to the end of it. And I've seen already such undescribable extent of consciousness and dimensions, you can call it, which are so far from our perceived limitations today, that I feel the need to share a little bit of it with you. Number one, the most basic human being behaves more or less like a kind of animal. That's what we call the instinct, the instinctive person, the person that is mostly governed by one's reptilian brain, which means it's a person who, when he's hungry, he will eat. When he's hungry, he will fight, or when he's afraid, he will run. And there is no pause. There is no pause between the instinct and the action. There is no reflection. There is no thought. There is no judgment. There are still a few human beings who behave like that, but let's be honest, there are almost none. A very little percentage of humanity still behaves like that, like quasi-animal, purely instinctive. And most of humans alive today, I would say, are of the second density or dimension, however you want to call it, the second degree of consciousness, which is the left hemisphere, which consists in rationality, linearity. So it's a logical mind. It's not necessarily using much interactivity between things, but it will take logical conclusions based on the immediate input. So while the first degree of consciousness, human, is a purely a hardwired automatic robot, like a vacuum cleaner robot. If he hits a wall, he will just turn and continue and keep sucking food and living and producing waste, and that's it. Second degree brings a level of thought, a level of rationality, thinking, let's say, one step ahead, but still in an automatic way. It's, in a way, we can say that many human beings today are behaving like that. They are a kind of artificial intelligent robots, which they have some algorithms, but those algorithms still play out automatically, which means they use a lot of memory. They are essentially memory based, which means if they have been taught to do this or that, when they are faced in the context and the situation corresponding to what they have been taught should be done or said or even thought, that's what they will do. So they are even genuinely convinced that it's their own opinion that right-wing ideas or left-wing ideas or even centrist ideas are the truth, and when something happens, they have the immediate automatic answer to why it happened and what should be done about it. Then we can introduce the right brain, but it's also the same level. Some people are more right brain, which means they are more creative, they are more all-encompassing, but they will not necessarily bring much thought about it. So we have some artists who are very creative, but who don't necessarily reflect also, or who don't really coordinate their creation. Then we have another level of consciousness, and this is the new level of consciousness that has been going on this planet forever in a very, very little group of people. But I would say that in the past 50 years, there has been a mass growing of many human beings on the planet who have grown a certain level of conscience, of, let's say, rather of integration between their animal nature, their instincts, and their sensual abilities to feel things and not react immediately, but to to assess what are the options and decide what they want to do about it. Who also tap into the left brain to analyze where it's coming from, compare it to past experiences, and then pass it through the emotions of the right brain, feel the emotions and not necessarily act upon them. So I would say this is the kind of fourth density or third 3-4D human being, people who are, we can say, really sentient human beings who have access to all this feedback mechanism from their body and mind. So they are a body mind, but they have an unconscious distinction between what's going on in their body, the emotions, the thoughts, the senses, the feedback, the desires, the hunger and all that. And they are a little bit more intelligent in integrating all this information and deciding, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Not always purely as an automatic consequence of what the circumstances have provided as feedback through their body mind. And what is coming in the future, my dear friends, this is very important, but I will have to let it seep through to you very carefully and slowly, because this is not Nostradamus predictions. This is really the evolution, the natural evolution that is going on in each one of us. And depending on where you are in that evolution, you will totally misunderstand and misinterpret what I am going to say, and it may be counterproductive. So I will have to say less. And if any one of you want to go a little bit deeper, I will be glad to have one-on-one conversations, assess a little bit where you are, to make sure that what I tell you is not going to be counterproductive for you. But generally, what I can say is that the natural evolution of human being is to reach fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. dimensions or densities or degrees of evolution of consciousness. And this year is a very critical year because it's an accelerated phase of really almost forced evolution. And unfortunately, it's possible that there will be a crossroad at some point in the future where some of us who succeed in bringing our consciousness to a higher degree, to a more evolved and multidimensional and inclusive consciousness, will be able to proceed into a more expansive life, a more free life, in a more conducive environment, while those of us who are stuck in a lower vibration, in a more reduced spectrum of consciousness, may have to proceed in a more challenging environment, which is actually also more conducive for them to succeed in getting to a higher degree of consciousness. But of course, that's not necessarily pleasant. So it's a very complex and it's a very beautiful system. We don't need to understand how it works. You know, it's like a car. You don't need to understand how the engine works to make a very good use of it. If what you want is to go fast and enjoy life, or even go slowly and enjoy life, open the rooftop, breathe the air, go to the beach. So the car, you don't need to know how a car is built and how a car functions and how the chemical reaction of the explosion of gasoline works. You don't need to know how the engine, crankshaft, and all these things, timing belt, and all that works. You don't need to. If you want to know, it's a fascinating world, but it's not necessary to know about it. What you need is to know how to drive. You need to know how to drive this body, this amazing body that you have, that is your vehicle, that can take you anywhere you want in life, that can take you to amazing joy, fantastic experiences. I love to swim. I love to take my car, go to the beach or to a rocky creek and dive in fresh water and see the fishes and enjoy the sensation, holding my breath and then breathing again. And I love that. So I often take my body and drive to a place where I can enjoy that. But each one of us have different joys, and we can all drive our body to wherever we want. If we learn and we know how to drive, we know how to keep all the feedback mechanisms of the body at check. So we need to check if the fuel is there. We need to check if the temperature is right. We need to just basic checks. Then we start and we go where we want. And we have to be very awake and aware to look at the road to avoid accidents. When we talk about car driving, we all know that. But when we are talking about driving our body into life, suddenly we all believe that there is some magic and that we need to understand how it works inside, and that we don't need to understand how to control all the physics and the sensations and the thoughts and the ideas and the coordination of all that. No, that's what we need. So what we need is to learn how to drive this body and master it. Not anytime something happens, give huge sways. Simply be steady, be contemplative, take our time, and know that if we want to go to the beach, we just need to do a quick checklist, then drive peacefully, watching the road, being fully present and aware, and we will get there. So for some of us who want to be mechanics and help people maintain their car and make sure it works well and make sure it will take them where they want, those few of us can study the intricacies. But for most of us, it's just about controlling our instinct, controlling our intelligence, left and right brain, controlling our emotions, controlling and mastering our sensual perception, understanding them, not always reacting too quick or overreacting to stimuli, relying on our linear logical brain, but also tapping into our imaginative emotional side, not letting any of these components of who we are override anything, because the overriding consciousness of who we are consciousness, we have access to all this feedback in this life, in the body, in the mind, but also in other dimensions. It's much bigger than that. And we have access to all this stimuli, all this information, all this feedback, and we decide who's the boss. I. Who is I? It's not Vincent, for sure. Vincent is this body. It will die at some point. It's not French. It's not white. It's not left or right wing. It's not any of that. I is I. I am the one who is making decisions based on all what is happening and all the feedback I receive from this body and this mind of Vincent, and from other dimensions of Vian and others. And when I receive all this, I decide that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the creek and I'm going to dive into this crystal clear water, swim with fishes, breathe life, refresh my body, my mind, my spirit. And you see how all these concepts of what is right and wrong, there's no place for that. Life is beautiful, life is like that when we don't sabotage it by giving too much weight to our thoughts, too much weight to our emotions, too much weight to our sensations, too much weight to even some other components. We are none of the components of life, we are life itself, and we can make it amazing in more than 8 billion different ways, and we can cooperate to make it even more amazing. So this is what I'm hoping for all of us. I love you, and I hope I will hear from some of you soon.